This is another archival upload of some of my previous mix critique videos. I apologize for the vertical format that this video is about to switch to. This is 291 to 295. This mix was sent in by Aiden. If this was a rough mix right after recording, it would be okay, but if this is supposed to be like a finished mix, it's nowhere near there. All the tones sound pretty good, but it sounds like you did very little processing and the balance is kind of all over the place. The drums, I would probably leave the drums where they are, but the bass needs to come down and the guitar needs to come up because everything's feeling kind of muddy because of how loud the bass is compared to everything, and we're not really getting enough upper mid attack out of the guitar. Really only the upper mid attack out of the drums is coming through, which, you know, you still want that obviously, but like the guitar is not filling up the frequency range the way that it should here. But honestly, this doesn't sound mixed at all. It really just sounds like you finished recording, you did a quick fader balance and just sent it out like that. It doesn't really sound like you processed the drums all that much. It sounds like you didn't process the guitar or bass all that much, which is fine because I don't really think that the bass or guitar need too much processing. Maybe a little bit of compression and a little bit of EQ on the bass. But like, yeah, man, it feels like just a bad balance and something that you haven't actually put any time into. The tones sound okay, it's mostly a balance thing, but it still just doesn't feel entirely finished. This mix was sent in by Ben.
I wonder if you let me out, choke us out with a chain of doubt.
First thing, that guitar on the left is way too loud. Also, I know it's kind of a lead lick. It sounds like you might have some other rhythm guitars going in there too, but the fact that it's panned all the way left is throwing off the balance of everything. I'm assuming you were trying to get it out of the way of the vocals. First, blending it in better might help, but really I think you should either double that so you have the same thing on the left and right and have like a wider stereo image, or pan it right up the middle and find a way to EQ it so it's not clashing with the vocals as much. But other than that, the guitar's too loud in general. It's definitely taking away the energy from the drums and the vocals. So like balance stuff, and it's also kind of muddy. You're getting some low mid buildup, so you got to work on some EQ there, which again, working on the balance more is probably going to help that a lot. But yeah, those are the first things I'm noticing here. All right, the guitar tone during the chorus is really bad, man. I'm sorry, but like does not sound good at all. The lead tone earlier on with that guitar that was all the way to the left, that sounded pretty good. The rhythm tone going on in the chorus like sounds crunchy and harsh and gross. And so biggest thing here I think is balance and panning. You got to spend a lot more time balancing the faders before you start adding processing. This mix was sent in by Low. The song's less than a minute long, so I don't know how much feedback I'm gonna have to give here, but we'll find out. All right, man, honestly, the tones sound fantastic. I think really the problems I'm having here are production-wise. Like, after the intro, when it's mostly just the guitars and drums there, I feel like we're missing bass. Like, it might be in there, but if it is, it's mixed way too low. I feel like bringing the bass up would fill that out a lot. But even then, it feels kind of empty. Then when we get into this other part where you got like some of those like synths and extra effects in the background, that fills stuff out a lot. I still think it needs the bass to be fuller there too, but all that extra stuff in the background really is making things blend together a little bit more, and I feel like that's missing in the section right before that. But honestly, the basic tones are great. Like mix-wise, it's pretty good. I think it's production stuff here. Other than just bringing the bass up, like it's mostly production elements that need to be filled out more. This mix was sent in by Dalton. All right, so the tones are pretty decent so far, other than that guitar that came in towards the end of where I stopped there. It's out of tune, doesn't sound great. This intro is way too long, man. You're doing like 2 times through the progression and then adding something else and doing another 2 times through the progression and then adding something else and another 2. Like, it's way too long. It's boring. I would have turned this off already if I wasn't trying to do a critique for you. Looking at the waveform, the actual song doesn't really kick in until almost 50 seconds into the track. That's way too long. honestly, mix sounds decent, at least for the genre. My biggest problem is it's fucking boring. Like, you gotta develop it faster. You gotta change things up more. Like, you have to keep it interesting. You gotta keep it moving to keep people's interest. And before people go in the comments telling me it's a mixed critique, you shouldn't be talking about the songwriting. Yes, I should, because if the songwriting's so bad that I can't listen to the song, it doesn't matter what the mix sounds like. Songwriting is the most important thing. You need to get that right first. If you have a boring song, doesn't matter how good the production is, doesn't matter how good the mix is. If it's a boring song, no one's gonna listen to it, no matter how good it sounds sonically. This mix was sent in by Jordan.
You come in all nice, all smell sweet and light.
Alright, it sounds okay so far. My biggest issue is the kick drum and the vocals aren't really blending in with everything. They kind of sound like their own thing. They don't sound like they belong in the mix the way they are now. More than anything, that's probably a levels thing. I think if you backed them both down a little bit, maybe mess with the EQ a little bit so they blend in a little better. Maybe a little bit of mix plus compression. When it gets louder, the drums are out of time. Like, you can feel that the drummer is like way before the beat. I'm not liking the guitar tones. And again, nothing's blending together well, especially the vocal. The vocal, again, just sounds like a standalone thing. It doesn't sound like it's part of the song, which leads me to believe that you, like many other people, are starting to EQ and compress and like do actual processing before you've balanced your faders. You need to balance your faders first. Get everything as close to finished sounding as you can with just the faders before you start processing. That is the biggest problem I see in all of these critiques, is just people start processing too early. They start trying to use EQ and compression to fix things that could be fixed with the faders, and you end up destroying your own track by doing that. You need to spend more time balancing the faders before you start doing any processing. I promise you, that tip alone will get you much better mixes every time.